So, we all know that Star Wars Destiny is a fantastic and very fun game, but these things are very fiddly and annoying to play with. So, what's my solution? Get rid of those and use this fantastic abacus that I have put together for the purposes of this video. It's very simple. All you're using here is some beads, some cords, and of course a border to keep them all locked in. But how do you build one of these, you ask? Well, that's what I'm here to show you. Wow, that's very zoomed out. Let's zoom back in. Sometimes mistakes get made. I'm about to make a second one because I usually end up playing at least two sides, and I would like to show you how. So what are you going to need? Well, first of all, you're going to have to get some beads. I got these for $12.99 at my local art shop. You're going to need at least 20 of them, and it is smart to have them in similar colors so that you can keep consistency. You're going to need a length of cord, wire, or something to keep them all together. I have chosen this kind of cord. It is Parachute 550, whatever that means. And I chose this one because it is just wide enough to be able to fit the beads on without them moving around so much. So you can see after I get that one on there, like that's not going to move affected by gravity. I'll bring that closer to the camera. See how it's not moving there? It's good for the bead and it's good for the counter. I've made my frame out of balsa. You do not have to make your frame out of balsa, although balsa is probably the easiest kind of timber to use. You're also going to want your hot glue gun. I've got my Stanley knife. And if you want to get these engravings on the thing, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need some sort of engraving heat tool, which I have. The heat tool is also useful for cutting the cords and for trimming down the edges on the abacus. The first thing you're going to want to do is get your beads out. I have counted out 10 greens and 10 purples for this one. And I have then cut my cord. Now because the cord is just slightly too big for the beads to go on at the beginning, I'll try and show you there. Well, I'll try and show you here. I've tapered the top of mine so that it will be easier to put the beads on top. So, for example, let's zoom this in a little bit more. I'm going to put the green one on here. I'm going to worm it in. Not the easiest thing to do, but once you get it on there, pain in the ass. There you go, the bead's on. I'm going to speed through this one so that you don't have to watch me do that with every single bead. Okay, and once you've got that on there, what you'll want to do is you'll want to separate your different colored beads a little bit. I'm going to get them about that far apart. I'm actually going to move the whole lot along the cord. And from there, you start being ready to put them onto your dowel. So I'm going to bring in my dowel now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over just a little bit so that I can put it on here, and from here I can measure out where I need to make some grooves so that the cord can actually sit in there. So I'm going to get my pen. I'm just going to mark off on either side of the dowel, of the cord rather, to show where I'm going to need some grooves. So in order to get these grooves out, we're going to dig them out with the heat tool, and while we wait for that to heat up and get ready, I'm going to chop this wood into different size pieces so that we can actually start working on the frame as we go. The lengths of it I'm going to adjust as I go, but if you are wanting to measure them properly, this is entirely up to you. I'm going to use my Stanley knife and I'm going to cut right here. And I'm not actually going to cut onto my mat because I am fond of this mat. I'm going to instead cut onto this orange box. Because you're using balsa wood, which is exceptionally soft, it is usually fine just to make some incisions around it and then you're able to snap it right off. And I'm going to give a rough estimation of where the timber is. I'm going to cut it here. And then again down here. And that should be able to give us an estimate of where we need to be cutting or snapping as it is the timber. And then finally I'm going to measure out those same groove spaces on the second piece. You're also going to need, I forgot to mention this, but a drink bottle and some water, because you are working with a lot of heat tools. In the middle of summer, it's going to get gross, so drink lots. Heat tool is ready, so I'm going to bring it over here to my bits of wood, and I'm just going to slowly carve out that groove. The reason I'm using the heat tool is because, well, a few reasons. First of all, the balsa is very soft, so it's easy to carve with just the heat tool. Second, it gives you a bit more precision, and you usually end up with a pretty decent looking product at the end there. So you can see the groove on that. And again, I will speed up this process so you don't have to watch the whole damn thing. So a couple of do's and don'ts when you're doing this. Do allow yourself to be patient with it, because it will take some time and you will get better results if you are patient with it. And don't touch the fucking hot thing, because you'll end up with burns. I always do, and it hurts. Alright, so once your heat glue is ready to go, what I will do first is I'm going to give the bottom peg, I suppose, some glue. And hope it doesn't turn over. That's not good. Alright, then I'm going to take my cord with the beads on it, and I'm going to loop it, and I'm going to press it down into the grooves that I've made for it. And then I will get caught on the glue, and then I'll take the top half and I will put it down onto the piece as well while the glue is still going. You end up with a loop at the back, and you end up with the piece basically stuck together exactly how you want it. I'm also doing this with the benefit of hindsight. On my first one I didn't move the beads away from the glue, and I had to fight with it to keep it from actually sticking to the back piece. I got there in the end, but it wasn't fun to do, so this time I'm going to be I've moved my beads down a little bit. You'll also notice that I've made the cord exceptionally long for this one. That's just to give myself a little bit more space. Now on the other side, you really don't need to keep them apart for too long. The glue will have dried mostly by now. So on the other side, you're basically doing the exact same thing. I have already prepared two pre-grooved pieces. I am going to just move them down a desired length, so I probably want them about that length from the back. It just gives me some room for my counters to work. I'm going to then, exactly as I did on the other one, glue across the bar with those in the grooves, and then attach the top piece. Now the last thing I'm going to do with this part, this section I suppose, is I'm going to take the loose ends of the cord and I'm actually going to tie them together. And then, so that they can't go anywhere, I'm actually going to glue that knot into place. the very last thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm actually going to cut those cords so that they aren't flying all over the place, and I'm going to use my heat tool to do it because it's just a little bit neater than using the Stanley knife. Alright, so now we've got our opposite ends of roughly equal lengths. All we need to do for the time being before we put the rest of the frame on is make sure that those are actually smooth on the end so that they will glue in. How you do this is up to you. I am going to do it with the heat tool. I'm just going to smooth out those edges on the edge of the tool, so much like this. Alright, so those are now roughly smooth. I am going to leave this for a few seconds while this glue at the end dries, and then I'm going to come back to the rest of it. So, alright, so how you create the rest of the frame is semi up to you. You could either go from the outsides or you could go from the insides across. I am going to, with this one, go from the insides across because I'm working with more limited wood. Now you have to be aware that the first few that you do won't be super stable because you are kind of just wedging in a lengthwise pole between two shortwise poles, but as you add more support to the frame, which I'm about to do, you will see better stiffness, I suppose, is the word. Okay, so now I've attached the frame. What I've just done there is I've just added a little bit of glue into certain grooves that were too empty. That will keep it together and stop it from falling apart. So what I really need to do now is basically you're done. You are essentially finished. What you need to do is you just need to let it cool. You maybe want to smooth that out a bit. I will smooth that out a bit because that looks kind of gross. There we go. That's much better. Lovely. Wonderful. You can see that this one is a bit wonky on the inside. That's okay. It will still count for you. If you were to fix that problem, all you would need to do is not actually glue the front loop in so that you could pull it through at your leisure. From there, all you really need to do is, well, nothing. You're finished. All I would end up doing is I would end up decorating it so it ends up looking a little bit like this one with the words on it. But aside from that, you are finished. Wonderful, fantastic. Tell me in the comments below what you would like to see me create for game purposes next. The best answer, the most fun answer, will receive their very own Star Wars Destiny abacus. Oh my goodness! And I mean, you don't have to use this for Star Wars Destiny, you could use this for any number of games where you need to keep a track of things. Counters, life, whatever, you could always use one of these. I have been Nick, I have been burning myself for your entertainment. Thanks for watching, I suppose. I will see you next time. Ciao!